Okay, here we go. Great. So I'm Jonathan. I'm a co-founder of Undaunted. Thank you for joining us for what we think will be the last call of 2023. This is the 7th gathering of this network around, supporting schools to make the most of the Inflation Reduction Act. And with the big goal of just leveling us all up, sharing information on what we're learning, both from the federal government and what we're learning from district and, private sector partners from each other, and trying to, make the most of this historic opportunity. We've got the norms, there in the agenda, just asking everyone to, really try to participate with respect, humility, generosity of spirit. As much as possible, we've been trying to make this a camera on space. And always understanding that from time to time, you need to turn your camera off and take care of something or chew or, whatever you need to do, but generally try to default to camera on, microphone muted. And then we've been recording these calls and putting them up on our YouTube channel so that folks can go back and watch and, share them with their, people on their teams or in their communities if they need to. So today we've got our standing item around like what's new in IRA land. We'll share some of what we're seeing. We'll invite others to build on that. We wanted to try to have a conversation just to kind of lift up any kind of what we are seeing and hearing from districts as we try to support folks around just 2023 reimbursement, for projects. We are planning some media outreach once the IRS direct pay window opens up and want to kind of invite you into that, conversation with us. And then close, the last thing on the agenda is sort of trying to map our efforts a little bit, trying to move from maybe into a new phase of this kind of work, where we are being a little more targeted in sort of our efforts to raise awareness, about IRA in states and districts. So that is where we are headed. And looks like Stephanie dropped the agenda in again. And maybe I will then turn things over to you, Sarah, to
Great. Yeah.
start answering the question. Yeah.
Any other new friends, sorry, that are joining us for the first time on this call that want to say hello? Do we get Aaron? I know you piped up. Joe, have you been on a call before? I can't remember.
Oh, I don't think so. I'm glad to be here. I'm Joe Parsons. I'm the Senior Marketing Sustainability Manager for Climate Control Group. A lot of what I do is around IRA and trying to spread the word in sharing information as information becomes available, because it's certainly still a moving target. So happy to chime in when I can. If I have additional information, glad to share it, and glad to be here today. Thanks.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, everyone else? Yeah. Okay, so what's new in IRA land? I think what's not new is we still don't have an IRS pre-filing portal. Anyone can correct me. I'd be glad if I was wrong about that, but we haven't missed it, right?
Sorry, we submitted applications. Are we talking about the same thing?
You're talking about, I think, for the low income bonus.
You're talking about for the bonus, you're not
solar.
talking about to get to payment. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I was like, whoa, what did I just do?
We could start there. Since we last met, they did open the portal for the low income solar credit. This is the one kind of weird part of these tax credits that is limited in its allocation and has a competitive element to it. As we talked about last time, Karen, you were the one to say these first 30 days they're all going to treat those as having been submitted at the same time, and then they're going to be rolling after that. So this first 30-day window is closing November 18th at midnight, and that's specifically for the low income solar and wind, I guess, but for schools, it's going to be mostly solar. I've heard there's a lot of interest in that, and they're certainly expecting it to be exhausted. So Karen, I'm glad you got on the queue there for that. That's great. Anyone want to say anything else about the low income? Did anyone go into that portal and actually how was it, Karen? Easy, hard?
Quite simple, actually. It's very straightforward. If any of you are actually doing one, you need to have your latitude and your longitude separated, which is not how GPS does it. I'm seeing some nods. There's like couple things. But basically, it's quite straightforward. It was perhaps even easier than the EV bus rebate lottery application for those who have that as a pretty easy government application.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, we're certainly seeing some people treat this low income bonus adder as like the trial run for a portal, for the broader portal for all the reimbursements, and latitude and longitude were mentioned in the direct pay, kind of preliminary guidance as one of the things you'll need to have. So I'm not surprised to hear that. But yeah, in terms of the broader pre-filing for the tax credit itself, that was supposed to be here fall of 2023. As far as we know, it has not launched, and no one seems to know when it's going to launch. Does anyone have any intel, or does anyone have any other information on the expected timing of the portal launch?
I heard a rumor that it was gonna launch pre-Thanksgiving. Just a rumor.
That's very soon. I've been surprised at how quickly Thanksgiving is jumping up on me here. So now I'm going to be doubly surprised. Okay, that would be exciting.
We could not to contradict Carly, but we heard it got pushed down again, and I think they said another month, but I can't remember now what the date was.
Okay. And can someone clarify for me again? Do people need to pre-file just before the May 15th tax deadline? They don't need to pre-file by the end of this calendar year. Is that right? So we're not looking to like get a thing like Christmas Eve and have to do it by New Year's Eve, right? That's not going to happen. Does anyone else know? Do we need to pre-file by the end of this calendar year? We just need to pre-file before we file, which is to say we might have January, February, March, April to get this done also. No?
That sounds like a hope, but verify.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember anything in the guidance saying it has to be by the same calendar year as when it was placed in service.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming. So, okay. All right.
I'll add
Well,
a link for Collective Sun's webinar. They went into detail about the pre-filing based on your fiscal year. So if you had a calendar fiscal year, it changed, and versus your fiscal year, which most schools are on the June 30th fiscal year. So the dates changed significantly, and then you had to file an extension based on certain things. So they went into really great detail on a lot of this information.
Who
I'll go
was
find the
that,
link
Shannon?
and put it. Collective Sun.
Okay. I pulled up the slide from the White House and Treasury briefing last June, and it just says late 2023 or early 2024 before tax return is due, is the
Okay.
exact language that was used for complete pre-filing registration with the IRS.
okay. Yeah, Shannon, I've been confused by the fiscal year of the school and the calendar year and the May 15th deadline. So I'd be interested to see stuff from, you say Collective Sun? What was it? Yeah, Collective Sun. They're a solar installer.
Financer and PPA for nonprofits and municipalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be interested to learn more about this. We in a conversation earlier today, we heard that like the fiscal year of the school is kind of independent. It's their own problem, kind of how they account for the receivable that will be this expected tax credit, but that like the calendar year is still what is relevant for kind of understanding the regulatory framework that is imprinted on that project, right, in terms of when it's put into service and it becoming then eligible for reimbursement. And May 15th is still the deadline. So kind of like the fiscal year story is really on the school's accountant's problem. Okay. Other things that are new since we last met, we now know that there are 5 teams that applied, including our friends from Rewiring America here, that applied to run the National Green Bank. So 2 to 3 of those groups are going to get selected by March, with programs to launch in July 2024. As a reminder, you know, that money is going to go for lots of things. And we at Undaunted certainly hope that it will take some programmatic shape and find its way to schools. But I think that's still a very much a TBD kind of a situation. So anyone want to say anything about the Green Bank stuff? Karen, yeah, go.
I have a rumor question that probably we could just go all like see what we're hearing, but I've spoken with one sub-grantee organization that said that they think they'll be ready to make loans like this time next year. And they then said, we're going to try to get all the money out in one calendar year from when we're ready. And I was not thinking that. So I'm just curious whether we all think that there's like a 12-month period that starts next fall or longer than that. And I don't know if those nods from Sarah and Brian mean yes, it's like a crazy scramble window, or.
Well, I know all the money has to leave the EPA by September 2024, but that's, you know, going to these 2 or 3 administrators. And then from there, I can imagine there's going to be immense pressure on them to push that out also. But
this was even one layer lower, right? Like this was
right.
a sub-grantee who said they're going to try to get it out in the year following.
Yeah. We shall see.
I would love further intel on that as we maybe early in 24.
Yeah. Okay. Another quick new thing, we talked on a previous call about the climate pollution reduction grants. Since we last met, I have seen a climate pollution reduction grant concept find its way to schools here in Massachusetts. So you can click on that link. There, we wrote up a little just 2-pager. The state here is, you know, currently has its CPRG planning money, and they were thinking about different implementation concepts. And one of the concepts that is currently being bandied about in Massachusetts is to put those implementation dollars that they would apply for towards decarbonization of schools. And they, in the parentheses, they kind of define decarbonization as buildings, transportation, land, and curriculum. So the most broad definition of decarbonization you can kind of think about, which is pretty cool. So we Undaunted are kind of like working to organize advocates to bring in their voice around that as a particularly enticing concept for the Massachusetts application to the EPA. Serena, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so on our California Schools Coalition meetings, we have talked and raised that same question of how to push California to do that with their CPRG funding, especially in light of the master plan funding being needed. So that is, we're in the early stages of drafting like a letter and then trying to get some meetings going with the California the CalShape program. I can't remember all of it, the words, but and then the California Air Resources Board too, CARB, who is the one who would be facilitating that money.
Great. Catherine, did you want to jump in?
I was just wondering if anyone else has been talking with any of the leading groups in the conveners network who are, is anybody familiar? I just put the link in the chat and we're happy to introduce you. We've been talking to the folks at Georgetown Climate Center in particular, because they're leading like a state's working group on transportation in the CPRG. So we just started some conversations with them, trying to help tee up ideas for how CPRG could help fill gaps left by the current federal opportunities on school buses in particular, but I'm sure there are parallel conversations to be had on other topics.
Before I turn it over to Anissa and the other batch is kind of like new resources that we just put in there, so I won't spend time on those, but wanted to make them available. What else did I miss? What else did I miss in the kind of what's new bucket? You guys had a lot of things that I missed last time, so I'm sure there's stuff I missed this time too. What's new in IRA land that I missed? Nada. You got it all? Okay, well, what's new is Anissa got some new money. So do you want to talk about that, Anissa?
Yeah, I just wanted to update. Yay! Woo. I wanted to update and also just like kind of put a flag and for future like collaborative opportunities, because the Department of Energy, I'm sure some of you know, they're getting a lot of their funding out through this like prize mechanism, because it's a lot less cumbersome on the recipient and probably on the agency as well. But the buildings that prize is focused on electrification with a focus on equity, and we received some funding by submitting a concept related to schools and specifically state level support for performance contracting and other sort of energy savings mechanisms for schools. David, you're unmuted. I don't know if you know that. And the state level support we're proposing to start with it will be in Colorado and North Carolina, but we're hoping that this model can help us reach smaller and more rural school districts around the country with mechanisms that can help them make building improvements that they wouldn't otherwise be able to make. So that's working with state energy offices and state education agencies. We're connected with a lot of you about this proposal, but our next few months is going to be creating the plan, the like more detailed plan for how to roll that out, and then we submit for another pot of money to actually roll out the pilot in those 2 states. And then if we do well in those 2 states, then there's another opportunity for additional implementation funding. So sort of like a stepped process. So just like a flag that we are going to be working on that. We are likely going to be tapping some of you who would be great partners in that work. And then also just a flag that like keep an eye out for DOE prize opportunities, because that's how they're trying to get a lot of their implementation funding out the door.
Got it. Questions for Nisa on that?
Your audio went out for a second. I was just clarifying. Did you say Colorado and North Carolina were the 2 states?
Yes. Yeah.
And Anissa, I tried to take a note in the notes. Did you say energy savings performance contracts? This sort of did I hear that right?
Yeah. We're sort of keeping it open for internal financing like possibilities as well, because we know that not every district wants to jump on a ESPC, but that's the main mechanism we're working on.
Great. Some new IRA resources that if they haven't yet, they will make their way to our website. But just to flag here quickly, a link to the roundtable that we did all about the IRA with a school building authority in Massachusetts that we're replicating across with other states. A blog post about 5 actions every district should take on IRA now to get ready and to be moving this direction of taking advantage of these funds, and then a great Ed Week article that is making the rounds and has gotten us some new speaking opportunities. So I think it's landed well. So feel free to share those or look at those as they are helpful to you all. All right, we already did what we missed, and I didn't miss anything apparently, Jonathan. So it's off to you.
Great. So this next piece, we have started to have some, direct conversations with districts around claiming reimbursement or preparing to claim, reimbursement for 2023 projects, and wanted to open up a space to just invite everyone to share a little bit, like, what are you doing that kind of work? What is it looking like? And, or what are we hearing? What concerns or areas of friction are we kind of bubbling up from, district leaders, whether it's financial people in school districts, district accountants, facilities leaders. So maybe we could start with Sarah. Do you want to talk a little bit, kind of lead this off a little bit with some of what we've been doing? I know we linked a presentation that we gave last week, or have done a few different versions of for different district audiences.
Yeah. We've continued to iterate the presentation that we did in Massachusetts and make it a little more targeted nuts and bolts around the IRA specifically. So we presented to a group of Maryland leaders, I think it was last week also, where they're kind of trying to get all their state folks that touch school buildings up smart on the IRA, kind of train the trainer almost model, where then they're going to bring in all the LEAs and train them all on, you know, and kind of build awareness around the IRA. Similarly, we did a presentation to a group of district leaders in the CFO seats, mostly through kind of a learning community, and that unearthed, you know, a lot of good questions, and we kind of validated that, you know, CFOs are not, this has not generally made its way to CFOs either. I think one CFO in the room said, "Oh, I think my team was talking to me about this last week," and that was kind of like, but it was news to I think all of them pretty much. So just a like stock taking of like where we are. But I think that's the work that we're doing, is mostly trying to use the state to convene school districts en masse, take advantage of existing learning communities among school district leaders, and kind of rinse and repeat this presentation. And then maybe I'll save the concerns and friction, but I want to hear what other folks, or Jonathan, do you want me to go into that now?
No, I think we can stop there. And I would just say, if you haven't looked at the 5 actions, like the first action is essentially getting a team that's maybe a finance person and a facilities person, and looking back at your 2023 projects to look for eligible aspects or technologies, and then thinking about, resourcing, this application for the direct pay reimbursement. And so we're trying to figure out, are you all having those kinds of conversations yet, with district leaders as well?
Karen, you're shaking your head. You were in the solar portal, but you are not yet talking to people identifying 2023 equipment. Context of in the context of your work with clients, are you like identifying equipment that was put into service in 2023?
I just did that for one specific project.
Yeah.
But this is it's just an interesting mix of, most of our stuff is prospective, so we've been doing like planning, executing.
Yeah. Tish, what about you on the solar side? Do you have schools that own their, I guess it's a little bit different on solar, right? Because so many of them that are put into service in 2023 maybe don't own their equipment, but do you have schools that installed solar, put into service in 2023, and that you are helping them think about how they actually harvest these tax credits now?
Not yet, because I mean the development timeline is slow, and most folks we're talking to really are still using PPAs. So I think this is still a new process for them to think about what direct ownership would look like, how they afford it, and particularly planning for how, okay, even if we get this direct payment, how do we afford the other 30 to 50, 70% that we still owe. So I haven't seen much movement across the board that this is something schools are able to do right out the bat with that. I mean, I think it'll take another, through the next tax year before we really start seeing more applications coming out.
Riley, what about you? You certainly have schools that are putting like ground source heat pumps and stuff into service, right? Have you been involved in any of the Seattle work? I know they put a ton of ground source into service in 2023, right?
Not so much in Seattle, no, is my answer. But we can ask them.
Oh, I thought they put several of their new schools that they opened this year, right? All were on ground source?
No, I mean, I haven't been in contact with them about it.
Oh, okay. Any of your other school contacts that you have that put stuff into service in 2023?
No, but I've talked to a bunch of them that are interested in it, because the IRA is this like linchpin to be able to actually put it in.
Okay, so we're having all the prospective conversations, but none of the like, what did people already do in 2023 that they're eligible for conversations? Is that what I'm hearing?
Actually, I'd love to, I went to a conference recently, and I met with someone who leads a lot of the zero energy building work for schools at CMTA, which is one of the leading engineering firms that thinks about that calculating how to make zero energy pencil out for schools. I think where we might, instead of thinking about solar that was added on to an existing school, because most of those are paid for through third-party ownership, new buildings is where the direct ownership would come into play. So if we kind of go back and look at, okay, what zero energy schools or new buildings were completed in 2023, that's where I'd look for solar panels that they've owned and where they'd start doing it. So I'm thinking of like in Virginia, VMDO is the architecture firm that has really been successful with zero energy schools. I'd have to kind of go back and see, okay, which ones went live in 2023, or maybe that's a good question for, the contact I made there, because he seemed to kind of be on top of like what schools were doing that, including John Lewis Elementary School in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I don't know if that that come on this year.
I think it's older, Anissa.
The older one. Yeah. So I have to kind of go
a
back
couple
and
years.
see. Yeah, I'll poke them and just see if, because that would be great to just know some examples and be able to like talk to some schools that are going through this process.
Right. It's also a fun phone call to make if you can find them $1 million, that they're going to get back next year sometime, right? Karen, you had your hand up, and then Anissa.
This may be a rabbit hole question, so I really want to encourage our facilitators to just be like, let's shelve this for now. But a client I'm working with has had a geothermal system that has never been turned on. It was built in 2007. I know this is a crazy story already, but I hope it's the only one. I know someone's jaw just actually dropped. This conversation is making me think that if we actually got it running before December 31st, could they actually seek a direct pay? Like, who knows? That sounds, I mean, bit of a rabbit hole, but
Yeah, they're
never been placed in service.
never been placed in service, new equipment. I don't know. Do our friends from the geothermal world have thoughts on this? Client master group, you guys have thoughts?
I would think that would be the case. Since it's not been put into service, as far as we still have that pre-registration requirement, that we can't really address yet. But I wouldn't see why that could not happen. I know that there were meetings earlier this week between leadership of Geo Exchange Organization and Treasury. I haven't had a chance to debrief with Ryan on that yet. I know that the teams on Capitol Hill this week, actually today, and the main focus of the meetings this week are trying to determine exactly when we'll have clarification from Treasury. The calls that we're receiving right now are changing from a standpoint of conversation with schools, and primarily not necessarily directly with the school itself, but with our reps in those areas that are dealing with those customers, have changed dramatically from seeking basic information now to seeking invitations with tech professionals that can help them make that decision. And these are for systems that would be put into service in 2024, potentially 2025.
Yep.
Anissa?
Well, I feel like this might be a repeat point, but what we're hearing from school districts that we work with is, and that we present to, is that they just like still think that this is fairy dust, and they will until somebody gets a check that they know or that they can see or that someone presents to them. So the example that you've been giving of Amherst is super powerful, Sarah, because it's like a real thing. But that the more of those that we have, more people will believe this, but it means that this like opportunity for things that were installed this year is like, it's really hard to get districts to like jump on that because they're all just kind of like waiting because they don't think it's real. That's what we're like, we keep coming up against this. But if
Yeah,
they've
I mean,
already put it in service, like there's no skin off their nose to just do it. I get that.
yeah, I
but
mean, if they put in service,
Mhm.
this is
They've already
exactly
paid
why
for it.
we
Yeah.
desperately need these 2023 examples, is so that we have some folks to point to, because Amherst is just, I mean, they haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet. It's as mythical as anything else. So I
Yes.
just feel like putting it on a slide, right?
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe a
Anyone
question
else?
then, for the Climate Master team, is this something that you're going back to your 2020, customers, even though the IRA might not have impacted their decision making, a couple of years ago? Do you know which, where your systems went into service this year? Are you going back to, folks and letting them know, or is that something that you would want help with? Because those districts could, a $12 million geothermal system might find $4 million to be able to pay for the next, that they could put toward the next system.
Yeah, Jonathan, actually, I was just texting with our rep that did those Seattle school projects, trying to find out who exactly would be the best contact person and this design engineer to bring that to. So I think there may be some opportunity for those projects that got commissioned in Seattle this summer to try to qualify for that money. We probably already had funding, as you said, like these jobs were probably designed 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
But absolutely. Yeah. So we are reaching out, trying to, I know, Joe has been doing IRA presentations regularly. We've been trying to get in front of the design specifying engineers and architects as much as we can as well, to get that out, that are working with the school districts. It's a long fight and we'll keep fighting it.
Are there others other than Seattle? Because we had heard about those, but I wonder whether there are other schools where you guys know your equipment has gone into service.
I believe we have some projects in the Las Vegas, Nevada area as well, that have gone in this last year. I don't know if those have been commissioned yet, though. I'd have to check on that. I know we've shipped equipment.
Because that's
we've had
that's a battleground
conversations.
state. Sorry,
We've
go
had
ahead.
conversations with those in Iowa, Kansas, Michigan, most recently, on the school side. There's certainly a lot of projects out there now that are not of that nature. I mean, just typical commercial ground source heat pump installations that are going, have gone into service in 2022 and 2023 that are already planning to file. And some that filed actually in projects that filed from systems that were started in 2022. So, because we're really working from a situation where we've had a tax credit on the commercial side. It's just that it was at a much lower level at 10%. But the precedent is already in place. So those companies that have been focusing on geothermal tax credits for commercial applications are business as usual there. So filing as they have done in the past.
This is Tom Pikunka. I'm a rep in Rochester, New York, and we commissioned a 575-ton school project this year. And I got a couple questions. How does the 445-ton maximum come into play when the system is over the 445 ton? And what's really a central system and a decentralized system? Like this particular job had 23, 25 ton water to water heat pumps. Is that a central system or is that a decentralized system?
Anyone have a thought for Tom?
gonna dig at your email earlier on that question and doing some research on that now, so I don't have an answer for the group, but certainly we're working on the response. Actually working with a contractor who has been involved with similar projects just to get his take on what, how he has split that up in the past.
And Joe, if they didn't go through if the school district didn't go through the pre-registration process and now they just want to start applying for this tax credit, is that's still possible to do?
I think that's still possible because again, we haven't had that opportunity, I don't think there's been anyone who's received any response, as far as being provided that unique identifier so that they can track the project.
Okay, thank you.
We've talked about solar, we've talked about geothermal. Anybody tracking like charging infrastructure in school districts or energy storage? Because all of those technologies are eligible too this year.
And the buses.
Right.
We haven't tracked charging infrastructure, but we have heard a couple of school districts have like plans to submit for that money. Like they know that it's there. The sustainability directors that we've talked to. So like Durham Public Schools was talking about it just last week. And I think Sacramento. But we haven't like tracked it.
Yeah.
What about in the school bus side? Do we have a sense of all the school buses that are going to be able to claim tax credits in 2023?
I see Carolina and others are here as well, but it's complicated. I think that the costs of the school buses, if they're not getting the Clean School Bus Program award, and sometimes even if they are a lot. And so we're hearing from some school districts that there's a challenge with the lag time that they would anticipate between having to actually put money forward for their bus and then collect on the 45W credit, the $40,000 for the qualified commercial clean vehicle credit. But there's also, I think, the bigger challenge of school districts don't really know about it as an opportunity in the way that they know about the Clean School Bus Program, even though EPA is trying to point out that these two things are stackable, can be used together. So I think there's sort of a messaging and awareness challenge with that. And then also, what will it look like in the day-to-day and implementation? We've been thinking about some different ideas, like trying to figure out if manufacturer or dealers can arrange like payment schedules that would actually account for the fact that even if they file on a quarterly basis, it's still going to be at least like 3 to 4 months before they have that $40,000 in hand and then could turn over that final payment to the manufacturer. But there's still a lot to sort out there. So we're also trying to get a sense for how big of a barrier that actually will be for districts. So
yeah, and I would just add, and apologies that I can't be on camera today, but I think, like Catherine said, the biggest issue is knowledge about the webinar. I mean, the tax credits, and EPA is trying to hopefully do more education about this, but they are telling school districts, like, we're going to give you less funding this round because we expect you to go get this tax credit, which is a real disconnect from the fact that you can't even do the pre-registration filing, right? And so we did suggest to EPA that they host a webinar with IRS, and they're actually doing that. So I'm adding into the chat that webinar, which will happen December 5th. So they're going to have the Department of Treasury come give an overview of IRS tax credits. Obviously, like in the past, not expecting them to be really effusive with answers because they're very hesitant to give out tax advice and all of that. But it's at least an opportunity to get more education out there, because EPA is fully telling school districts you're getting less money because you should go get this tax credit, you know, and like Catherine said, the earliest someone could actually see funding from that tax credit is 2025. So not an ideal situation. But hopefully we'll start to see, you know, in the next couple of months, really, just how many school districts are going after this, ideally based on that pre-filing registration.
Whereas with the Clean School Bus Program funding, they would have had that funding like at the time they needed to actually pay for the bus, regardless of whether it was a grant or a rebate. So there's definitely a little bit of a lag time issue. One thing I'm not clear on, Carolina, you might have greater clarity than I do, is if they're able to file on a quarterly basis for this. I thought that they might be able to, which would at least potentially make it not like a full year of lag time, but less. Or do others have insight into that?
I'm not sure, to be honest, just based on what I've read, it doesn't sound like quarterly is an option. I do think that a lot of what I've read is based on direct payment, right? Because that's something that school districts can actually take advantage of. But I think, again, like you were saying, private companies, they might be, again, pre-filing for elective payment is available, but private companies will be able to take advantage of this much sooner. And so it's just a question of if they pass that discount down to the school district, I think.
Catherine, if we run into school districts that took possession of electric school buses in 2023, should we send them to you all for help, or do you feel like you know all those people already?
You can send them our way for sure. We'd love to help them not only on tax credits, but just on general implementation. You know, we're hearing more stories of districts who have received funding from Clean School Bus Program who are like struggling with their implementation and their charging infrastructure and things like that. And beginning to think about like how we make suggestions to EPA about kind of, you know, they've done a lot, I think, but even more robust support, especially on infrastructure. And so we're trying to get ahead of bad stories and help districts actually make this happen in a positive way. So send them our way regardless.
Okay. Speaking of stories, Jonathan, do you think we should shift gears here?
Yeah.
Time. Okay. So one of the things that we're planning to do is to do a big kind of media pitching exercise when the direct pay portal does open. We're working with a comms firm and we're kind of, you know, actively kind of refine those pitches right now so that we can be getting some hits. You know, there's certainly going to be we expect a broader story written about direct pay as a new thing in the world, and we want to make sure that schools are in those stories, you know, in kind of the broader direct pay storytelling. But then we also think there's an opportunity to do some storytelling specifically on schools and this new opportunity with direct pay. One of the urgent things we need, though, to make those stories really come to life are the 2023 examples, right? Examples where school districts right now are expecting to do this pre-filing, you know, maybe they'll be doing their pre-filing after their Thanksgiving turkey, if some people on this call are right, and we'll have those stories to tell. And so we're really trying to identify a range of projects from a range of states, you know, ideally a range of technology. So it would be great to have a story about, you know, electric school bus that's applying for the credit, and some electric vehicle charging equipment, and some, you know, ground source, and some battery, and some solar. So to the extent you all can help us identify that 2023 equipment, so we can give the media the fodder that they need to make these stories real, because, you know, just talking to us is not going to be nearly interesting enough. They're going to need to hear it, you know, kind of valid, and it won't land, right? Like, just like you were saying, Anissa, we need the actual examples for people to dig into and see is real. Do you want to jump in, Michelle?
Yeah, just a quick question. I think some of the people I know who have done projects this year are higher ed organizations, which obviously is not the same, but I wonder if we want just a volume of stories. Is
Mhm.
that something that you'd be interested in collecting, or do you want to stick strictly to K-12, which I understand if we do?
Well, look, I mean, I don't know, Jonathan, what do you think? Again, like we kind of imagine there's going to be a broader storytelling that could be K-12 and higher ed, that could be, all kind of the non-taxable entities. So, I think our pitching will be around K-12, but, not to say that we couldn't pass them over to you guys if you have some higher ed stories too, for reporters that are interested in writing a broader story, I guess is what I would say. So,
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks.
yeah.
And Karen, I just saw your comment in the chat. Do you know, do the New York City projects, does the district own the panels?
Oh, right.
Good question. All right, Chance, I'm gonna pick up sandwiches.
I don't remember.
You want Italian?
Sorry. I don't, well, the city would own it if anybody, so the school district doesn't own it. But I was just gonna put in the chat about what about Denver? Because they had already done a bunch, and then I heard they were like trying to make a target, so they were just sort of throwing up more solar in a not vomiting way and putting it up more solar.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they have something that came on in 23.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we are scheduled with maybe Denver and Dallas. We are trying to have a few conversations, with folks that we thought might have some projects.
Prince George's County too.
Oh yeah, Prince George
Yeah,
County.
yeah, they should have some stuff. Albuquerque, I can't find that guy's name, but every time they touch a building, they put solar on. So if they touched a building in 23, they put solar on it.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah,
they may
trying to have 20 school districts just got $6 million or whatever. Yeah.
That's the idea, that if
Yeah.
we can have a document that goes with this pitch that kind of points reporters toward, like, look at the money that districts are, finding already, and it would help. We would be in such a different position next year if there are some number of districts in, diverse geographies, across these technologies that had actually gotten a reimbursement. And so we're just trying to make sure that happens.
So let's talk whenever it is, Sarah, that you and I are talking about whatever we're talking about. Let's talk about this because we actually have some interns starting, 2 college and 4 high school. Holy moly. And if there is, this sounds like a pretty heavy research lift, but if there's some way to do it, we could basically contribute to that research effort. Or each one of us on this call could take one state. Don't you love a decentralized education system?
Yeah. Tish?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Piggybacking on Karen's comment, you're right that I think New York City does buy a lot of their own solar. I think they do a mix because through the mayor's climate commitment, they have dedicated New York City funds that pays for solar. They even have like their own in-house solar project managers that just work on solar for the school district, not just the city. So that would be a good example. I can try to reach out to Meredith McDermott, who leads NYC. I haven't thought of that, but I know they do have dedicated funds to buy, not just for PPA. And then I was just looking through my notes. I was listening to the EPA webinar that just happened the other day. Tim Farquhar from Williamsfield Schools in Illinois. I didn't listen to the whole webinar, but I wrote down that he said on the call he was planning to apply for the 40,000 tax credit for his ESBs. So I don't have a direct contact, but I don't know if Catherine or Carolina. I took a screenshot of the Meet Our panelist so I could get his name right, but he's the superintendent of Williamsfield Schools in Illinois. And so he said that on the EPA call that he was planning to take the tax credit.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. He's a great champion. We have him enrolled in our ambassadors program. So
yeah.
Yes, microgrid as well.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me, we should, I would imagine Gil Rosas is thinking about this stuff too. We should, invite him into this conversation. He might have multiple technologies. Yes, Harley. Okay, so all of this, you know, the through line of these conversations is looking for 2023 projects to help find school districts money that they are entitled to and they may not know about, which is a fun thing to do. And then to leverage that, you know, collective information to raise more awareness about this opportunity in the field at the moment that the direct pay window opens. So thanks everyone for sharing and any of kind of the follow-ups that this, you know, conversation may have sparked. Moving then down to the last piece on our agenda, and I think I might just share. Can I share screen? Yeah, I can. We want to click in. So we thought we might be beginning to enter like a new phase of this work, you know, where the direct pay window is going to open. And, you know, we've got a website up on our, you know, where we've kind of pulled together a bunch of the resources. And so we are now starting to like have a moment where we can be a little more targeted in our outreach to build awareness. And so this document is us, you know, as Undaunted, trying to start being kind of transparent with you all about like what we're up to. So there, if you scroll through, there's, you know, we've got a state tracker with 50 states, where we started to, you know, kind of put, you know, fill in, you know, so for example, in Maryland here, you know, what are the state agencies we're working with? At this point, we've mostly been working directly with the Interagency Commission on School Construction, you know, and a little bit, you know, what we're doing. And then in the, you know, and then in some places where we see opportunities to collaborate, you know, either who we're already collaborating with, or, you know, we've had conversations with, you know, you, Harley, and Blue Green Alliance around like, are there opportunities to bring this work, you know, to some of the states where some of you all are? So we pre-populated a little bit. And then if you scroll all the way down, we put a list of the 100 biggest school districts and just sorted it by state and tried again to kind of be transparent a little bit on like who we're talking with. And this could have been a list of 250. And I know we're all trying to make sure that we get these resources and are having conversations with smaller districts and rural districts. And just from an emissions perspective and an impact perspective, we do want to make sure somebody in the biggest districts over time is aware of these things. So we're kind of putting this out there as an invitation to you all, you know, to either see it and say to us, oh, we're focused on a particular state, so don't worry about it, Undaunted, or we see you're not there yet, but you know, we'd be interested in collaborating there. So this is sort of where we are, and we think we will get farther faster and make a bigger impact if, you know, some light, you know, kind of coordination infrastructure like this exists. So this is just our, you know, kind of beginnings of a tool like that. And then a really important column in this document is this 2024 battleground column, where with our scarce capacity between now and election day, if we have choices on where to go to try to make good things happen for kids and schools, and help the impact of the IRA get more visibility, we're going to try to prioritize our resources toward battleground states, and would invite others to, you know, to join us in that focus. So that's what that document is. If you have a couple minutes, if anything sparks and you want to put any notes in there, or if you want to schedule a call to, you know, follow up, you know, our kind of basic strategy is to try to kind of replicate what we did in Massachusetts, you know, partnering with a state agency to do some kind of webinar or awareness building activity, and then, you know, highlight some local examples, you know, from that school building community and how they're thinking about using the IRA tax credits. So we have something like that, as Sarah shared, kind of emerging in Maryland. We are kind of working towards something like that in Wisconsin, we think, and just, you know, kind of welcome, you know, collaboration and partnership with y'all. Sarah, anything you would add to that?
No, it's good.
You want to close this out?
Who, me?
Sure. Or unless there are any comments on that last piece. I mean, we've only got a couple minutes.
We just started to dump some stuff there, and, you know, could see from the Blue Green space what states you all are in. So started, but like, really welcome you all telling us where you have deep connections in states, where you have more district contacts within certain states, so that we can be aware of that. So.
So for example, Anissa, I heard Colorado and North Carolina, are places where you'll be working. And I thought, at some point when we have a minute, we would put Center for Green Schools doing a thing in those two states, something like that.
Yeah, we could also note like on your district tracker where we've got people.
Great.
And I guess last thing is, we had intended this to be the last call of the year. If the pre-filing portal gets launched and folks feel like, man, it would be really helpful if we got on a call, just reach out. We're happy to do that. Otherwise maybe 2024, but we'll see. I don't know. Do folks have a sense right now whether a call would be helpful about the pre-filing portal? If it's simple like the solar one, Karen, maybe we're all just good and Okay, well,
I
look
do
out.
think
We're
when
gonna-
you get to actually filing, it's pretty straightforward. Sort of the stuff we've been talking about here of, will they take this and that is the more complicated stuff. But I will just say, I find these calls really helpful, so I do hope they continue in the new year. I'm just not sure we need one for
Yeah.
the IRS portal.
Great. And I guess the last piece was the survey. Yeah, is that what I should close this out on?
Sure.
To that point, we tried a new thing with you all this year, having these calls, and glad, Karen, you found them helpful. I found them enormously helpful. And we put together just a quick little survey so you guys can tell us, what benefits you got out of this, what you'd like to see going forward, and help guide. We want this to be a good use of all of your time. This is a diverse group, and appreciate the shared conversation around what is an exciting and yet always evolving and complex opportunity for schools. So appreciate all the contributions here.
Awesome. And it shouldn't take more than 3 to 5 minutes, something like that. It's pretty quick. Well, great holidays to everybody next week. And we will, I'm sure, probably see many of you between now and the end of the year, but otherwise we will plan to convene again in this group sometime in January. So happy holidays and thanks for all your work. Be safe, healthy, joyful, all the things. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.
I'm gonna stop recording.